Hey, it's Uncle Joe at Uncle Joe Hikes. Parked down at the Duncan Ridge Coosa Backcountry Trailhead at 180 again. We're heading up the Duncan Ridge Trail, Coosa Backcountry Trail, the opposite way this week towards Slaughter Mountain. Well, this is going to be a fairly steep hike, as you can tell. So we make it over this first hump and then on to Slaughter. There's already been a couple of people on the trail, so yeah, not a long hike, but if you're not going to do a long one, do a steep one. You know, give yourself a workout. That's what this is going to be. It's really cold and windy. Got my little toque on. I'm using my lab mic, but I think it's about to die. Actually, it had plenty of charge, but I think the cold is just getting to it. Anyway, we're working our way up this steep incline and fighting the cold. Well, in my missing hiker video, there were a lot of great comments, and a lot of you are wondering, commenting and speculating on what might have happened to Charles Hosch. I thought we'd talk about some of those comments and a little bit about what we know, as a family did post an update last week. Haven't found him yet, but it did answer a few questions, so we want to go into that. The wind continues to be brutal. We made it to this little campsite. Some of you may recognize this from a previous video where I found a sunglasses case over here. They've been chewed up by a bear. And we're on that false summit. If you look across, you can see Slaughter Mountain proper. It's been a brutal hike from a wind standpoint, as you can probably hear, and I apologize for that. My lav mic that has a nice windscreen on it, I think the cold just zapped the batteries on that. I usually don't have a problem with the wind with this GoPro, but lately I have been, so I don't know if I need to do a firmware upgrade or something like that, but something's going on. Anyway, we're going to get off this false summit here, saddle over to Slaughter proper while I have some warmth from the sun and no wind. I did say that there's been some updates from the family, and one critical piece for me was about his cell phone. They don't really know the status of his cell phone. Now, I had seen something, a comment or a post, where someone said that he had left it in his car. That does not appear to be the case. So I would presume it's on him somehow, but the problem is they haven't been able to triangulate his position with it. So they don't know if it maybe wasn't completely charged or something like that. They do speculate maybe that it wasn't getting good charge at some point. I don't know how they know that, if there was just something that was in the data, because they were able to see, I think, responses from his cell phone while he was driving. So that answers that question. What happened to his cell phone and why haven't they been able to find him? Well, that's it. They've tried, but it definitely was not left in the car as previously thought. Another couple of interesting pieces of information is that there are a couple of apps that they're using. One is CalTopo. Many of you may use CalTopo. It's sort of a alternative to AllTrails, I guess, or Gaia. And I downloaded that, and I went out and downloaded the turned on shared maps, and I might get in some trouble, but I'll put a picture of that here on the screen. You can see that they've absolutely blanketed that mountain, Blood Mountain, searching for him. Now, the shared maps are not all searches, right? Could be older tracks from other people mixed in, and in fact I know there are. But if you click on some of those with the app, if you have it, you'll see some of the dates of some of the people that have posted that, and you can see that a lot of that activity has been since Charles went missing. So that'll give you some idea of just how much searching has gone on that mountain. Another app that they've been using, I think it's called Blue Hound. The speculation was that they might be able to get a Bluetooth signal off of his car keys, off of his key fob. So they were using that for that. All right, we are skirting the summit of Slaughter Mountain here to our right. It's giving us a little protection from the wind too. So like I say, many people were speculating things that may have happened to Charles out here. You know, back there at that campsite was where I saw the sunglasses case. It had some chew marks on it, likely from a bear. So we know there are bears in this area. You got Lake Winfield Scott, a lot of campers on that side. You got right down at the bottom of this hill, Vogel State Park, a lot of campers. So, you know, bears are going to frequent those areas looking for some food. So many of you speculated, did a bear possibly get Charles Hosch? And in the comments, I kind of said I doubt it very seriously. Bears are hunted in Georgia, so that tends to keep them a little honest. I've said that before. We've never had, I don't believe, a fatal attack in Georgia. I mean, it's the first time for everything, right? A lot of people say black bears don't harm humans, or unless you get near their cubs and things like that. It's less prevalent. The cub thing is less prevalent with young mothers, they say. But certainly a bear that's had multiple sets of cubs will be more protective. Likely because she's probably lost a few in her day. But I don't think that there's a chance that it was a bear. I mean, there's always a chance, but on the other side of the Freeman Trail where we were hiking in that video, that missing persons video, is the Chesta TWMA, so there's a lot of hunting that goes on over there. So the bears would largely want to stay on this side, I would think, but you never know. Speaking of bears, you could imagine one living right in there, right? Never know. It's like the kind of place they'd want to go. So we're looking uphill to Slaughter proper. Still not seeing any obvious routes. I do know that people go up there. My buddy Jeff Duckworth, just this last week, I think, was reminiscing about hiking up there when he was younger and spending the night and all that. So another prevalent theme in the comments was maybe he wanted to be gone, maybe he wanted to disappear. That's always a possibility, but I think some pieces of evidence against that are the fact that he told everyone where he was going, and he was in constant contact with his family on the trip. For those of you who don't know, he's from Texas, most recently, which is where he had come from on his trip when he decided to hike Blood Mountain and disappeared. But he's from Gainesville, not far from here, and he's very familiar with the trail. So it would seem maybe an odd choice if you're going to try to disappear. So I think that's least likely in the scenarios that we've been talking about. There's Blood Mountain looming large in front of us. Working our way down the backside of Slaughter here. Onward. Of course, the primary speculation is lost, hurt. Of course, those are both possibilities. It would seem plausible that after speaking to the person who saw him on the summit, that on the way down he could have gotten hurt. And that's what you're hoping didn't happen. But at this stage, at the very least, something's gone wrong, and possibly far more serious than just being lost. But yeah, you know, clearly something is amiss, you know, in either having gotten hurt, lost, or both. Of course, one of the questions that everybody had in the comments were they using dogs? And I can tell you that they were. They had canine teams from multiple states, I believe, out here with dog teams. The dogs did get a lot of good hits. It's one reason why they were searching where they were. Another question was, were there any drones used? Yes, there were drones as well. Some good drone teams were out here doing a search with drones. Helicopters were also involved. So all of those were done, and they've been done multiple days, multiple weekends. I mean, we're at the 2-month mark, so you know, they've been out here, and as you can see from the CalTopo map, they've really, you know, they've really covered a lot of territory. It's just a puzzle, you know, what could have happened to him. Another piece of speculation in the comments was, did he meet with foul play? I believe in the latest update from the family, they were told by authorities that they treat every missing person like this as a possible foul play victim. So yeah, until there's evidence otherwise, the assumption is that that's a very distinct possibility, that he was robbed, maybe met at the trailhead when he got back to his car, and taken against his will. You hate to think about that, but that is a possibility. Others have asked, could it have been a supernatural disappearance? This mountain has a history, you know, going back to the Indians, supposedly named after the big battle between the Creek and the Cherokee. A lot of death supposedly on this mountain. We know that there's been at least one woman killed on the mountain. There's been missing hikers. Somebody in the comments noted that their brother, I believe it was Blood Mountain, was part of a search and rescue effort some time ago. So certainly got a dark history. To what extent that could be evidence of supernatural occurrence, you know, I'll leave that up to you. It certainly is odd. But my personal opinion is you're just getting the fallout from the sheer number of people that come to this mountain to hike it, and that's a lot. So statistically, you're casting a wide enough net that you're going to have a certain number of incidents. We're approaching a fork here, not too far away, where the Coosa Backcountry Trail is going to turn off to the left, go down to Vogel State Park, and Duncan Ridge is going to continue on to Blood Mountain. This is fairly well trodden as trails go, but the one out of Vogel coming up and then going to Blood Mountain is considerably hiked. So yeah, we might just run into some folks down there. Lots of ice crystals here in this freeze thaw, breaking up that dirt. The wind is chilly over here on the backside of this mountain too. Whew. So here we are, Duncan Ridge to Blood, Coosa Backcountry to Vogel. We just had a trail runner come through, heading that way. We're gonna go down in this camp area down here and see a man about a dog. Lots of wind up here. It's crazy out here at this little campsite. I did find this little Coleman. Looks like it might be a cell phone pouch or something. As we're coming up Slaughter from the back, I just crossed this old roadbed here, and there are a number of these old logging tracks that peel off the trail. Any one of those might have been one that you would use if you were lost. Well, I kind of ended up not taking my break because I found that pouch. I went back and got the coordinates of where it was found, just in case there's any significance to it. I can give that to the authorities. But yeah, on our way up, we'll have a very hard keto Reese's cup. You can imagine little rock areas like this being places you'd want to search for someone who might want to take refuge. This is right off the trail, so I know it's been searched, but just to give you an example. You can't see it through the trees probably on the camera, but we can see the lake down at Vogel, and the summit Slaughter's up there. I'm not going to scramble up there. I do believe there are tracks going up there in Caltopo indicating that people have been up there, and I presume probably have searched that. That would be an obvious summit to go look at just because of its proximity to Blood. But it would make more sense if I came off Blood Lost that I want to go down one of those trails to Vogel. I can't imagine why you would go to Slaughter, although you can be off trail and parallel the trail and not see it, which is always a possibility. Getting a little bit of a view here. Make our way. Again, I want to reiterate, I am not involved in any official capacity with the search operation. I went out and hiked the Freeman Trail because I was a little concerned about possibilities on the south side of the Freeman Trail. The family has noted since then that that is an area of interest. That creek draw that I was concerned about does have, I think 7 people have went up and down that draw since he disappeared. So that's been looked at. They are looking at that entire area. I think it's Brushy Mountain and some others on the south side there as possibilities. That's a huge area, Chestatee Wildlife Management Area. And if you got down in there, you could be anywhere. I mean, it's just like everything else, right? That area where we were at the fork back there creates a triangle or a box with the Appalachian Trail, the Trail to Vogel, and the highway. So if he's in that box, that's a fairly large area to look at, but I know it's been looked at pretty extensively. So that would lead you to believe, okay, what hasn't been searched? South side of Freeman. So just hope that he didn't make his way into that mess. And it's not so much a mess as it is just a large area, and it's just going to take a lot of work. But Slaughter, it's been searched. It's easy to say he shouldn't be over here, but you know, somebody in the comments relayed a story of their brother having a hunch about another ridge in the search for a couple, and they wound up being there. So you know, you never know. Getting back to questions in the comments, speculation in the comments, somebody had asked, could it have possibly been a Bigfoot? Well, I haven't really been involved in the Bigfoot question in years. I did know a family when I was younger that relayed a story to me that they saw one in their backyard, that it circled one of their children before disappearing. This happened shortly after dark, and they're people that I trust, so you know, this occurred over in Alabama, not here in Georgia. My understanding is this area is kind of a hotbed for possible activity, so you know, moving on the assumption that there is a Bigfoot, my response to the comment was, this wouldn't be an area they would particularly want to be. There's just too many people, you know. He's won the hide and seek championship for a reason. Another unpleasant possibility is some sort of impairment. You know, maybe he had a heart condition that nobody knew about, or could have had a cardiac issue. Maybe he had some cognitive issues that no one was aware of. You hate to speculate that, but he was certainly getting close to the age where that's a possibility. Of course, it could happen at any age these days, it seems. You hate to think that, but you have to consider all possibilities. That doesn't really tell you any more about where he might be, but you know, it kind of throws a wrench into where might he be. But really, anytime you hit the trail, you get lost, if you start to panic, you may not have cognitive disability, but you're going to have cognitive impairment as a possibility at that time, even for somebody who has no other issues, just simply because your mind starts racing, you start making irrational judgments. You're in here when it's really cold, you start getting hypothermia. That impacts your cognitive ability. So any number of things could have caused him to stray, not only off trail, but far away from where he might otherwise be thought to be. You just don't know. I can tell you that this trail, especially when you're skirting slaughter early in the spring when the trillium's coming out, there's a lot of white trillium along there. And you look through here with these laurels, when the laurels start blooming, this is a nice section of trail too. I think that would probably be May-ish, somewhere in that area, but yeah, the laurels will start with their clusters of white blooms as well. It's a great time to be on the trail. We still got a lot of cold between now and then, but we've got something to look forward to. There's a little campsite. This is the first one you come to when you hike up out of the highway. I cooked breakfast there on my overnight around the Coosa backcountry trail. I actually camped down the forest road. We can just see old Earl waiting patiently. Hopefully nobody broke in and got my Viewmaster. I think it's got my National Park reel in it. I don't want to miss that. If you haven't noticed, at the end of my hikes, I always try to reference some kind of toy or piece of nostalgia from those of us who grew up in the 70s and maybe the 80s. But I kind of have to cycle through them a little bit. I try to jot them down when I think about them or I come across them on the internet. So if you got any ideas, put them down in the comments and we'll see if we can use them. Well, we hiked onto the other side of Slaughter to the split with Vogel. Looks like I had around a little over 5 miles of steps. That tells you just how much climbing there is, because it's really not a very, very far hike by any stretch. I want to say it's only about a mile or so up to Slaughter proper, but lots of steps. But yeah, met this couple coming down who saw my missing 42 days video, and we talked a little bit about Charles and what might have happened. And you know, it kind of just baffles you for what could have happened. You know, they kind of felt the same way that many of you did, that he's not on the mountain or something happened to him, some kind of foul play. We just don't know. Anyway, we're gonna get out of here. I'm gonna go around to Vogel and maybe Byron Reese Trailhead and let them know what I found with the pouch, and give them some coordinates if there's anybody there. I don't know if there's anybody there, but we'll find out.